So what have you been up to, sir?
I do this thing where I get on the internet and I complain at someone and then I go get some work done.
Oh.
And I've discovered that is my preferred working method, apparently. Because that is the only circumstances under which I can get anything accomplished.
So it's sort of like the typing equivalent of psyching yourself up in the mirror.
Right. Exactly.
You know, that's weird, because right before you started working yesterday, we had a long complaining discussion. Oh.
Oh, yeah.
I see.
It all makes sense now. How come I only ever hear from Brian when he wants to complain?
That's okay, because Brian only hears from me when I want to complain, so.
Uh-huh. It's a trade. Yeah, it works.
We have the same relationship as, like, the grumpy old men in the old folks' home.
Yeah, absolutely.
We sit on the porch in silence until one of us wants to complain about something.
Right. Right. It's like that. Oh, it's the old joke about the kid who, he's born and he never speaks for like 12 years ever. And they send the kid to therapy and they try to figure out what's wrong and nothing seems to be wrong. He just never, ever talks. And then one day he's sitting at the table, and the family is having dinner and he's kind of eating away and everybody's, they've just all adapted to it now. So they're having conversations around him. And all of a sudden he looks up and he says, "Could you pass the salt, please?"
Okay.
And everybody's amazed. It's like, "Oh my God, you're talking. What happened? How did this happen?" Well, up to now, everything's been okay. Anyhow, but yeah, I got some complaining in yesterday. And so therefore I got some transit work done yesterday.
Excellent.
I have finally dealt with the entirety of the week 1 beta test feedback. Which, as you may recall, happened in April.
So how many weeks of playtesting feedback do you have to work through now?
I have 2 official weeks left to work through, and then 2 unofficial weeks to work through.
Oh, okay, that's not too bad.
Yeah. Getting the official stuff out of the way first. The practical upshot of yesterday's work is that Transit now has some quick start ship rules.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, because we learned that, or somebody learned, one of us learned that the ship building portion of character creation,
yes,
is apparently the most difficult and time consuming.
Well, isn't that pretty much the majority of character building?
Well, I mean, you have the AI building as well, and the AI building only takes 10 minutes or so.
Oh, okay.
Whereas ship creation was taking upwards of 30 minutes or better.
Okay, see, I sort of, as I looked through the stuff, I sort of just conflated the two of them together.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know. But you build your character in 2 halves. You build the AI and then you build the ship that it goes in. And it can be any of a variety of different ships with any of a variety of different weapons. So what we did was we made some suggest. You know how in like D&D they go, "Oh, if you're going to build a barbarian and you just want to do it real quick, and then just take this, this, and this." Yeah. That's what we did for the ship, or for the AIs.
Oh, smart. So basically it's just you made a pregen and then told people to write down that pregen on their own piece of paper.
Correct. And fortunately we can kind of, because of the way the game is structured, we can kind of showcase 2 different pregens with 2 different focuses for each AI. So that's kind of neat.
Hey, I don't know if I've said this before to anyone, and it just like hit me out of the blue. So I'm recording it now for posterity, mainly so that I remember it. What do you think of the idea that if you buy a published adventure, it should include a set of pregens?
I like that idea.
Right?
Do you know why I like that idea?
Pickup games?
Because,
oh, go ahead.
Well, pickup games, yes.
I shouldn't guess.
I also like it.
Let you feedback. Sorry.
Right. Pickup games, yes, but also because what that allows you to do as the writer or the creator of that adventure is present characters that are specifically fitted to that adventure.
Right.
How about you? What do you think?
I think it's actually a good idea. That's why it suddenly just jumped into my head. But I have a feeling I've had that idea before and forgot about it, and then just am now writing it down in my pile of important ideas.
I've learned something along the way, incidentally, I guess, about game design, or at least a piece of game design that I think exists, but I'm not really sure about. And that is, I've been playing Tales from Candlekeep, Tomb of Annihilation, right?
Right.
And for those who are slightly confused about that, we're not talking about the adventure module. We're talking about the video game.
Right.
The one we were talking about last time that's kind of like the tactics game, everything is individual pieces of turns and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Anyway.
The one available on Steam that feels very 4E based because it's actually based on the adventure system board games.
That one,
right.
Yes.
Okay.
That's exactly the one I mean.
Right.
How did you know? So I've been playing that a little bit, and streaming it on Twitch and all that kind of stuff. And I'm finally at the point, where we're actually inside the tomb.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I've gotten as far as getting to the Acererak fight.
Right.
And here's what I've discovered about game design, at least in this particular game.
Mm.
They cheat.
Okay.
There's a ginormous cheat in there somewhere, and I'm not exactly sure what it is. But whatever it is, it means that as you fight Acererak, he gradually depletes in hit points and whatnot.
Right.
And then he gets to a certain point, and it's not like he goes into overpower mode. His stats don't change or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a shift in tactics.
Okay.
Where he's not as willing to be toe to toe. He starts running around the map and whatnot, and you have to go chase him down and all that kind of stuff, which is fine. I'm completely okay with the change of tactics.
Right.
What I'm not okay with is what appears to be happening with the random number generator, which is that it suddenly decides that I don't need to roll high enough to hit him after that point, except in very rare occasions.
Okay.
It feels cheaty. It feels as if the game is preventing me from doing what the game was allowing me to do pretty much at a whim up to that point. I mean, no other boss fight in this game has been rigged in quite this way. No other fight, typical NPC fight has been rigged in this way. There's nothing to suggest that this is something you should have been preparing for or anything like that. And the other thing about it is you can read what his tactics are going to be. They're in the game. They're there for you to read.
Right.
So you can read his tactics and decide your best approach and whatnot.
Okay.
And the only reason I've lost to him 3 times now is because he hits that point in his HP where his tactics change, and then it also seems like the RNG changes as well.
Okay.
I don't like that. It feels bad.
Sure.
It feels like really bad, and it makes me think the game is cheaty.
Yeah, it's... Now, first of all, we know that sort of thing happens. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, you and I have both read enough about this stuff to know that game designers do tweak the underlying mechanics of the game to create I don't want to say better, because it's not always like subjectively better, but to create a different experience. And like BioShock, enemies in BioShock, when they would take a shot at you, their first shot would always miss you, to make sure that you had the time to turn around and see the enemy coming and engage them fairly, so that you wouldn't just get gunned down in the back. Because, in a video game, you don't have peripheral vision, you don't have as much awareness of your surroundings, the audio, yada, yada, yada. So they just did that. And there's been a number of games where like, your last hit point is actually bigger than your last hit point actually represents like 5 hit points. So that as you start to lose hit points, you become more survivable, so that you can get the feeling of like winning by the skin of your teeth.
Right.
And then there's the most famous one is Coyote Time, which I love, which is in a platformer where you have a moment to hit the jump button after you have walked off a ledge. Just gravity takes just a second to affect you, to just to give you a little extra second in case you slip. So we know that stuff happens. I mean, there's videos about it. What was it? Mark Brown did that video, and there was an Outside Xbox video. I think we talked about them.
Sure.
Before.
Yeah.
And the other problem is that random number generators are super clustery, right? It's just a known issue with them that they tend to, like, you tend to have streaks of really good luck and really bad luck. And then there's confirmation bias, where it just feels bad and whatever. But so it's really hard to disentangle that, But at the end of the day, though, if you're saying, man, this feels frustrating and it feels cheating and it doesn't feel good, then one of two things happened. Either the designers did build something into the system for the game to cheat a little bit and it's not working as intended because it's making the experience worse, or the experience is bad and they didn't build in a fix to it.
Mm-hmm.
Either way,
and the fun part is trying to figure out which of those it is.
Yeah. Though at the end of the day,
it's really hard to tell.
Does it matter what the reason is? At the end, don't you still judge a video game based on your experience playing it?
Mm-hmm.
So, sorry.
I would say that this, though, is tainting the otherwise innocuous experience of the rest of the game.
You're describing the game as innocuous?
Yes.
That's already not really a high compliment.
No, it's not. I mean, this game has a number of things that I would prefer to have been different, but are not, so I have to deal with what's there. But none of it is really a compelling experience. It's just an inoffensive one. They've not sold me a module. I'll put it that way. It's just like, okay, I'm playing this game till the end, I guess.
Yeah. So, well, but I would argue then that if you're starting from a position of it being it is an experience that I am okay with, then like looking into the deeper motives behind the game design is already kind of pointless.
Mm-hmm. Well, but what's happened is I need to beat this game so that I can move on to the next one.
Couldn't you just move on to the next one?
Not beat it and move on to the next one?
Yeah.
No.
Give up on the game?
No. If it was a terrible game, I would. Okay. But because it's sitting in that middle ground of not terrible, not great, I don't have a very strong reason yet to give up on it. Except that this final fight, the end of the entire game is borked. I don't know. If you're going to ask me to justify everything, I'll never manage.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'll never be able to do it. Anyway, that's what I've been up to. That's my experience for the past, what is it, a week now?
Yeah.
Something like that. You've done some things, I hear?
I think I mentioned last week that I had gotten addicted to Elite Dangerously, and I'm not sure why.
Right. You're elitely dangerously addicted.
Yeah. It's not really a game that I ever thought I wanted, because it's a very hard sci-fi simulation game, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm looking at what I've been doing in the game. So I make my money in two different ways. The vast majority of my money is that I have found actually, let me say, the smaller amount of my money involves bounty hunting and combat. So I have a nice little fighter ship that I kitted out, and I go out and I blow up people who are wanted in other systems, and then I collect the money. And sometimes I take on missions for various factions where I blow up specific targets. And there was an ugly incident where this game, because I won't, just like everything else, I won't look up much about the game. I like to just figure it out for myself. And Elite Dangerous is great for that because it tells you almost nothing. So you sort of have to work out everything. You know, like I did not understand for a while that when you build a ship, you have to consider the tonnage, the weight of everything you're including in that ship, because it affects things like the maneuverability and the range. So,
sure, and its inertial mass.
Yeah, yeah. Well, no, I understand that from a physics perspective. But like when you're building a character in a role-playing game, and you're picking out weapons, you pick out the best weapon you can pick out that your character can equip, has the right prerequisites for, and you pick the best damage. There's so many more things to balance out when kitting out your ship. You know, because you have to figure your fuel consumption, the distance you can travel at hyperspace, your maneuverability, and also power consumption. And, you know, there's only certain... Your ship can only fit so many modules, and each module has a size. So, like, working out how all of this stuff works is half the fun, you know? Anyway, but I had a really ugly little incident where a faction hired me to do a little mission. And I should have been suspicious because they didn't tell me precisely what the mission was right away. They're just like, you know, you're a skilled combat pilot, or you're a novice combat pilot. Could you just fly to the star system, and we've got some targets, and we'll tell you who to take out when you get there. Now, this faction, because I have aligned myself with the Federation, the equivalent of the American federal government in space, because that's who I am. You know, and so I figured these guys won't steer me wrong. So they send me to this system, and they're like, we need you to take out the 12 of these trade ships. I'm like, okay, they're probably pirates or something. I mean, they're probably bad traders. So I fly up behind the first one, find it, blast it out of the sky, or blast it out of space. I rip it out of hyperspace because I have a little hyperspace lasso. So you come up behind it and you rip it out of hyperspace, and then you both end up tumbling through space in normal space now, and then you have to like right yourself and locate the ship and then fly at it and blast it apart. And it didn't take a shot at me. It didn't have shields. So it was pretty easy. I'm like, this is the easiest, $1.5 million credits I'm going to make in this game.
And none of this triggered anything, right?
Ship blows up. And all of a sudden I get a message that I am now wanted for assault. Actually, I took my first shot and got a nice clean shot, and then this message comes up. I'm now wanted for assault. There's like a $5,000 bounty on my head.
You're wanted for assault, like you went down to the corner store and punched somebody in the head.
Exactly.
Okay.
So now, obviously, I'm like, okay, fine. I'm wanted for assault. That's nothing. Fine. So I keep firing and blow the ship apart. Get another message. I'm now wanted for murder.
Okay. All right.
And now there's a bigger price on my head.
Okay.
Yeah. So the government didn't tell me that they sent me into a system to just gank innocent traders. Now, those innocent traders were working for a hostile power. They were working for the Empire. Oh. Or something. I didn't bother to find out who they were working for, honestly.
No.
Who cares? Because the government wouldn't steer me wrong. Yeah.
You poor sad person.
So now
this is why we don't let the naive fly spaceships.
So obviously I did what anyone would do after I realized what I had been hired to do.
Ran like hell?
No, I finished the damn mission.
Oh, okay.
I don't want the black mark on my record. And I'd already murdered an innocent person. At this point,
Yeah.
You know, I'm damned anyway, so I might as well get paid for it. And I don't get paid until I, bring back 12 scalps. So
Yeah, it's not like they can hang you twice.
Right, exactly. So I brought back 12 scalps, collected my 1.5 million credits for doing the mission, and then flew off and turned myself in.
For your own bounty?
And paid off the $50,000 or the 50,000 credits on my bounty.
Mm-hmm.
Which was difficult because I had to go to basically an intergalactic courthouse to do it. And along the way, apparently some bounty hunters had gotten the word that I was now a bounty. So I had to evade a few bounty hunters. But I made it there, paid off my own bounty. They transferred me to a prison, put me back in my ship, and said, okay, now fly back to real space and you're fine. So even with paying off... Yeah.
Amazing.
But the way I've been... And that was fun. And I do like the combat in the game, but the way I've been making most of my money, and this is really distressing, is I have now picked out a home system where I basically go back to land every night. And, I have found a little 3-star system run of trade that I can just do. So, I pick up medicine at this one place and bring it to another place. And then I pick up tobacco at at that other place and bring it to a third system where tobacco is illegal, but the security is low. So I could just kind of smuggle it right in and sell it off. And then I pick up beryllium ore from that third place and bring it back to the first place. And this cycle makes me about 1 million credits a run.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Except now, it's so routine. And I even just put a docking computer in my freighter just so that I wouldn't even have to dock.
Mm-hmm.
So I literally spent an hour last night, while Tiny was doing her homework for school. I spent an hour literally flying in circles. And not even I had cut out all the excitement. I'm not even landing my ship anymore. I have a computer that does it. I just request docking and then press the button and I sit back and it plays classical music at me. So I have a part, and now that I figured it out, it's a very simple trade run. So there's no thought involved. I'm just grinding out credits, but I'm a trucker. I have become an intergalactic trucker with all of the excitement that trucking entails.
Yes.
And I'm enthralled. So something is seriously wrong with me.
Okay.
But I do use the money to upgrade my fighter ship. And then I go kill innocent people.
Good. See, because if you just want to be a trucker, they do have trucking simulation games.
Yes, I'm aware. But they're not in space.
No. Oh, I have to question your commitment to being in space anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not appending the word space to every facility. You didn't go to space court, you just went to the courthouse.
Sorry.
And I don't think you're immersed enough, sir.
I'm sorry, you're right, I'm not. I was listening to the radio. There's a space radio that broadcasts the space news.
Yeah.
I'm now actually looking into trying out some mining, which I'm told is even more slow and mindless. I did try it a little bit, but now I'm going to try it with a more expensive ship and a lot more features to automate more of it. And I think that will make it more exciting.
Oh, good. The less you have to do, the more exciting it is. That's awesome.
Yes, but when I do get bored of making, just making money so that I can buy better ships, so I can make more money, so I can buy better ships, so I can make more money, just running in loops with bigger and bigger cargo holds. I get into my little fighter ship and I just blast stuff. I go hunting for bounties or stuff like that. So I can get exciting when I want it. Or I go land on a planet and do one of the little drive around on the planet on the car missions. So yeah.
Admittedly, the truck simulators are kind of short on the get out of your truck and shoot things.
Right.
Well, I don't know why.
It's basically just GTA at that point. we finished watching the second season of The Good Place.
Oh, well, thanks for keeping us up to date on how that was going.
Yeah, well, we actually binged it in like a period of 2 or 3 days. We just watched. The seasons aren't long. They're only 12 episodes. And we'd gotten up to episode 3 or episode 4.
Right.
And then we watched it. I will admit the show is kind of compelling. It does pull you forward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not as much, but...
So are you prepared to admit that season 2 is equally as good as season 1?
Absolutely not.
Uh-oh.
Season 1...
It's better.
Season 2 was definitely a step down.
Oh.
Yeah, definitely a step down.
Really?
Yes.
How odd.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, explain your reasoning, sir.
It sort of became clear. Like, I was trying to figure out what was going on in the season.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because season 1 obviously ends with a big twist. But as you and I observed, It's also a twist that if you were attentive, you could kind of see coming. And you sort of knew what it was building toward. Right?
Right.
You knew it was building towards something. You had a sense that it was building to something big,
Mm-hmm.
And they had they did things at just the right moment in season 1. Like Eleanor's confession. It didn't come at the end of the season, right? It came sort of at the middle of the season, and it made the season really veer off in a different direction, And Jason's revelation that he was not supposed to be there came 4 or 5 episodes in, and it also made the season veer off. So there was a really good zigzag in what was going on in the season. Season 2 it felt much more earnest. Like, it felt like, I think part of it was that the big mystery had been given away. Okay, now you know they're in the bad place.
Right.
Okay, no surprise that that season 2 could pull would be equivalent to that. Okay, that I went into season 2 feeling that nothing that season 2 could do would be the same as that moment, the holy mother forking shirt balls moment, right?
Sure.
Okay, but I was still looking for one. And and I'm now, because the show had sort of primed me for a twist, just like you go for a like a Shamalama Ding Dong movie, knowing that there's going to be a twist, and then it's just like, well, what is it? So it had primed me to expect a twist, and it became clear that there wasn't going to be much of a twist. Okay, what happened was I knew it was going to end up being Gilligan's Island syndrome, where now they are trying to escape from the bad place with Michael. Sure. And I also quickly realized...
No spoilers there. No spoilers there.
Sorry. Spoiler alert. I'm the last one in our fan base to watch this, right? Everybody else has already done season 2. So we've given them plenty of time.
I don't know.
Well, then that's their problem. We recommended it a long time ago.
Okay, fine.
Okay. So you knew that if the show was going to be renewed, and it was, that they could not escape to the good place. So something would have to happen, obviously, to thwart it and to put the show in a new situation. But it wasn't going to be as big as the first season's moment, And the other thing is that the first season, if you look back on it, because I had rewatched it before I watched season 2, the first season was very careful about never showing anybody else in the cast who wasn't with one of the humans. Because if, they wouldn't be, because the elaborate deception would be ruined the moment we saw, say, Michael talking to Sean without the humans nearby.
Right.
Because they would have no reason to keep pretending to be who they were. Right?
Exactly.
Season 2, we see Michael interact, and obviously Janet also, because Janet was partially in on the deception, in a sense.
Right.
So, but we didn't even see Janet and Michael alone in season 1. Okay.
Right.
So we started seeing, in season 2, we started seeing Michael alone with other demons. We saw him with Sean. We saw him with Vicky. Right. And we saw, and we see Janet alone with Michael. And what that means is that all of their interactions are earnest, or there is a trick being played on Michael. Okay, which is why initially I said maybe Sean is torturing Michael, but in the same way that same way that they're torturing everybody else as punishment for his stupid experiment. That was the theory that I espoused, and I quickly discarded that because even that didn't jive with what we saw of them doing privately. So Michael and Janet were gradually becoming more human through the season.
Right.
But that sort of wasn't really a big surprise because I already had sort of had the sense that Michael's affection for humans were genuine. You know, because when he was around other demons and making fun of the humans with the other demons, because they were always making fun of humans, it was always very stilted. He wasn't good at making fun of the humans. You know what I mean? So, like, his affection for the humans was clear and genuine. And it's like, okay, once you realize that, it's like, no, they're not going to try and, you know, he's not going to betray them. And his affection for Janet, because again, we saw his affection for Janet in private moments between the two of them. His affection for Janet was also genuine, and Janet's affection for him and the humans was also all genuine. So all of a sudden, like, the number of possibilities was becoming very, very small. So that by the end, you knew Michael basically had to go to task for the humans. Otherwise, it would give everything else in the season the lie. And you knew that they also couldn't just escape to the good place, that there had to be a barrier that would set up season 3. Okay. So the idea of a new simulation, in which they will be judged for whether they will become good or bad people without each other around, and then Michael sabotaging it by connecting them together, or at least planting the pieces for them to get together. You know, he planted that little clue so that Eleanor would seek out Cheaty in the new simulation. You know, I won't say that, like, oh, I nailed that and I knew it was coming, but I knew something that looked like that had to be coming, and it didn't feel like a twist so much as it just felt like that's obviously where it has to go. Okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like the first season, like, I think, what's his name? The creator of the show, he gave an interview, right? I think it was him. And one of the things he said about shows is that premises burn out really quickly. I can't remember where I saw this. I think I read it somewhere. He said the premise of a show burns out really quickly. You can't get far on a clever premise, which is why they structured the show the way they did. But I feel like in the end, he took his premise of good people are in the bad place and yada, yada, yada. And all he did was stretch that premise to be a double premise that would fill one season. And I have this real fear now that it's going to become wheel spinning. It already feels like it's getting there. Do you know what I mean? What can they do from here?
Well, okay. I have so many questions for you.
Go ahead, hit me.
All right. What if this season was more about character development than it was about story development?
Well, that's fine and all, but it's mostly the same character development. Okay.
You don't think there was an element of assessing whether or not the characters had learned their lessons or you know, they had become slightly better people or anything like that?
I think I had already become attached to them as having become better people in the first season.
Okay.
I mean, once, like, especially Eleanor and Cheaty most of all. Those are the two main characters, and Tahani and
Right.
Jason are more support characters.
Right.
Cheaty was already coming to realize that he had been a bad person in life, that he had alienated everyone. To the point where when he was revealed it was in the bad place, and Michael said, here's why you're in the bad place. And Cheaty said, oh my God, that's true. This is everything I am. So he was already on the verge of that realization. Because he didn't fight it much. He didn't protest much. And his own flashbacks made him realize it kind of before then. It was just a matter of him admitting it to himself. And Eleanor had already become remarkably unselfish. You know, the whole first season is really Eleanor's redemption. Because without, like, if Eleanor had not been redeemed and proven herself to be an unselfish person in the first season, we would not have been invested in the idea that, yeah, you know what, she actually does not deserve to be tortured for eternity. Because the only reason we would watch season 2 is because at the end of season, oh my God, they're going to be tortured for eternity and their memory is going to be erased and they're going to go through this all again. That's terrible because now we've seen Eleanor doesn't really deserve it. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the problem of hitting the reset button is it's basically the same character development. You know?
Okay.
I mean, Jason and Tahani's relationship, okay, fine. But I think they both in the end realized that was bad. So it was just different character development. And Jason did go through more character development in the second season than the first season. But as they both demonstrated in the close of the season 2, they didn't really become fully redeemed. You know, if their greatest sins are Tahani cannot put aside what others think of her, and she failed her test. And Jason could not put aside his impulse control, and he failed his test. And Cheaty, for that matter, couldn't be decisive, and he failed his test.
Right.
So the only character who really had any development was Eleanor, and it was the same development again, you know? And now I feel like we just get to watch the same character development in a new setting, a new simulation.
Okay.
You know?
So you don't think season 3 is going to be any better?
I think it'll be let me say this out of the way. Season 2 was an entertaining season. Okay. I enjoyed watching the show, you know, enough that I binge watched the whole thing. I did want to see where it all went. And I do like the characters. I like the show. I like the writing. I enjoyed season 2, but it necessarily has to be compared to season 1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it doesn't compare better. It doesn't compare favorably. Okay. And I think season 3 is going to continue that downward trend.
You can't really do this. If they had led with season 2, if that had been their first season, would this be something you were continuing to watch?
Well, I'm still going to continue to watch it.
Yeah, but you're watching it based on the strength of the actual first season, right?
Right.
So if season 2 had been the actual first season,
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. Let me ask you: if they had led with season 2, and then obviously with some narrative changes made to make that work, you know, like they could do it. Okay, so you take season 2 as the example of they're in the bad place. They discover they're in the bad place. They're trying to improve themselves. Michael takes pity on them, helps them escape, brings them for a test, and in the end, they're told that they have passed the test and are moved on to the good place, except that it's season 1. And they really failed the test, and now they're in fake good place to be tortured. Right? And then Michael comes down. Michael eventually breaks down and rescues them. You know, so you could do it sort of the same. If that had been the structure, would you have kept watching into season 2?
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a tricky. I mean, it sounds interesting the way you put it.
Yeah, you would. I mean, that's how you'd have to do it, right?
Yeah.
But Now and would that take the wind out of the season 1 reveal if it was in season 2? You know what? That's the problem is the scope of the season 1 story or the stakes. I guess the stakes of the season 1 story are higher than the stakes of the season 2 story.
Right.
Okay. So they are turning down what's at stake. I mean,
it's almost like, okay, let me see here. So season 1, the stakes are very personal.
Yes.
Okay, and they are individual for each person.
Yeah.
Even though we're not fully aware of what's at stake, theoretically, until the very end, it's still much more personal.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas season 2 has much broader stakes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're much less personal. They're more, for lack of a better word, they're more organizational stakes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess so.
Well, I mean, to a certain extent. I mean, it's more about the organization and does the system hold?
Right.
Once you get to the end. Okay.
But, actually that raises sort of an interesting thing. The first one was much more about some pretty heavy ethical questions and systems than the second season.
Right.
I mean, the second season wasted a whole episode on the trolley problem. Right?
I wouldn't call that wasted.
Well, it was hilarious the way they dealt with it.
Right.
But it also was a puerile exploration of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also a very obvious exploration of it. It said, okay, here's the moral question, the trolley problem. Okay. And they used that to drive an ongoing joke about Michael falling back into his old habits of torturing them. Right?
Mm-hmm. And
he just did it by making different substitutions into the trolley problem to make it worse and worse and worse and worse. Hilarious. But when the first season decided to tackle, say, contractualism or universal morals or whatever, it would present the idea and then not talk about the idea directly, but instead the episode would involve that question. Right? Like in contractualism, where it was all about the morality of making promises and keeping your promises and the good and the bad and whatever. That was also the episode where Eleanor had promised to Michael that she would help him work out what was wrong with the neighborhood, knowing full well that it was her. Right? Mm-hmm. And so she was struggling with that question from many different angles in the story. But the contractualism thing was only presented briefly when Cheaty explained the concept. And then it sort of took a back seat and put a practical situation there. You know what I mean? It presents the question and then, okay, don't worry so much about the question. Let's just watch this practical situation that is about the question. Which leads in the end to her confessing, because that was right before her confession. The second season, when it comes to the trolley problem, it's like, okay, here's the trolley problem. And now, we're just going to blast through people and whatever. And and then they paid it off at the very end of the season in like a really, almost a saccharine way. Mm-hmm. Like, I figured out the solution to the trolley problem is you sacrifice yourself to save everybody. And it's like, right. Yeah, but that's outside the scope of the problem. That's not the point. That's because that's not built into the trolley problem because the trolley problem is not about self-sacrifice. So all you've done is avoid discussing the problem or exploring it. I feel like it was less intelligent than the first season. And it was really stuck on what is it? Contractualism? The book, What We Owe to Each Other. Mm-hmm. That one just kept coming up. That and Kierkegaard. And so What We Owe to Each Other is a real book. It was written by a guy named Scanlon. It was written in 2000, and I haven't read it yet, but I have ordered it from Amazon, so I will be able to sometime in the next year when I finally get around to reading it. But from the description of it, it seems like a really, really nice glossing over of sort of a postmodernist moral relativism argument, that morality as social construct, in which case I think I'm going to hate it. But I am going to, but I feel like somebody who was involved in the writing staff in season 2 fixated on that above all the other possible moralities, you know?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. So
you got any predictions for season 3?
Obviously we're going to spend a few episodes on them getting together, you know, and then they will get together and they will gradually start to figure things out. Michael will continue to dabble. You know what, actually here's my one guess. They only spend a third of the season in the on-Earth simulation.
Okay.
And I also feel that at some point the argument will be made that judging people on their self-improvement in a vacuum, which was the issue that the judge raised at the end, was, well, they didn't improve themselves. They only improved themselves because they knew what was at stake and they could support each other. And I think the argument will eventually be made by Michael, who will realize that human beings do not improve themselves in a vacuum, that they need other people, otherwise morality doesn't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll make that argument, and that there's absolutely nothing wrong with that fundamentally, you know?
Okay.
Yeah. But also I feel like, based on my limited readings of contractualism, I feel like that's veering back toward that territory again. So I hope this doesn't become a one-note program. I like a program that makes me think about all the different answers than one that sort of starts to have one answer. And I'm afraid, though I'm not saying that I predict, but I am afraid it could go that way.
Right.
You know?
So it's interesting. Okay, so the guy who makes The Good Place also did Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
We
Michael
know that. And something. Anyway. The thing I noted about Parks and Rec, because I tried watching it, and then I asked questions. Season 1 of Parks and Rec is terrible.
Michael Schur. Sorry.
Okay, season 1 of Parks and Rec is terrible. I really didn't get through it. You know, I got about 6 or 7 episodes in and went, this seems like a humongous waste of my time. I'm neither entertained nor amused nor thinking about what's going on. Okay. But then season 2 shuffled the whole thing up, changed everything. And then apparently a lot of people like it from season 2 on. But I can't get that far. So I don't know. All right. Then he also did a show called Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I think it is.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah, I've heard of it too. I know literally zippo about it. I'm told many things. Apparently, you know, it's a police drama of some sort. Or a police sitcom, I guess. And I thought about watching it. I looked at the previews of it and you know, the trailers and the teasers and all that kind of stuff. And it feels like there's nothing there to appeal to me about it, you know.
Well, my understanding of it is that it's an office comedy, like Parks and Rec and like The Office, which is what Michael Schur also produced. The American Office? Yeah.
Yeah, and again, its first season, and I'm just looking at reviews and ratings and whatnot. Its first season, not particularly well received. Okay. Well received in the first season. Okay. But then decreasingly interesting and decreasingly well rated as the seasons went on through its 5 seasons of existence so far. And I'm just wondering if we've got a sort of a trend here that is going to show up in The Good Place.
Do you think it's going to suddenly improve because he shuffles everything around, or you think it's just
he's got 2 choices. I feel like
it's either going to get better or worse.
Yeah, I know. But he's done the major shuffle, right?
Right.
Okay, that was the end of season 1. We're into season 2. There's been a major shuffle. And then he's shuffled again.
Uh-huh.
At the end of season 2. And I wonder if he's doing that not so much because he's learned any particular lessons about how to tell the story or anything like that, but because he's trying to keep every season basically new and fresh.
Yeah, except
because he thinks that's how it's going to work.
Except here's the problem. When you erase the characters' memories and ask them to learn the same lesson again, it's not keeping things new and fresh.
No.
Eventually, we're going to get tired of watching Cheaty and Eleanor, come together, discover that they like each other, and also Eleanor become less selfish and Cheaty try to become decisive. And we're going to get tired of watching Tahani realize that she's, we're going to get tired of seeing them deal with their sins.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, this is what I would have liked from season 2. And I know this is blasphemy. In the end, they take their tests with the judge, right?
Right.
They pass. They're ushered into the good place. Show canceled.
Or ended.
Show ended. Yeah, no, show not canceled. Show ended. Show done.
Yeah.
That would have been great.
Yeah.
It would have been really satisfying. The story would be over. And we would feel like now we had a complete arc with these characters. And we would have felt good about it. We would have actually felt at that point that they really did deserve that victory. And then he could go make something else.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would have liked.
I think we've got a 3-act story going on here, even bigger than just, within an episode or in a given season. I think the show is in 3 acts.
You think so?
Yeah, because you've got the first act, okay, which is the first season.
Mm-hmm.
And that act is an act of instruction.
Yeah.
Okay. You've got the second season, which is the second act, and that act is the test of knowledge.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And then you've got the third season, the third act.
Right.
Which is the practical. You've got the graduation, and now you have to go demonstrate what you've learned.
Okay, but narratively...
Yeah, narratively, it barely works.
Yeah, because the characters were at their lowest point between season 1 and season 2.
Mm-hmm.
At the start of season 2, the characters were at their lowest point.
Right.
The tension was at its worst because that is where everything seemed hopeless. They were going to have their memories erased and be tortured over and over for eternity, and Michael would have the power to do that again and again and again. There was no escape for them.
Right.
Okay. This now, the characters are on the upswing. Okay. Like we now believe, I firmly believe that Eleanor is going to earn her place in the good place, and Cheaty is, and Tahani and Jason will also figure it out because I've already seen them do it. I know they can win this fight now. But now they're in front of a person who can actually do it. The big issue is, of course, did Michael cheat, and will that affect the test?
Mm-hmm.
But again, that's not as big a question as the questions that the show was compelling us with in previous seasons.
No. No, I'm kind of with you. And I think part of the reason that season 2 might not work as well for some people is that really getting out of the worst thing that could possibly be happening to them was not really something that was under their control or that they personally affected, except for the fact that they kept succeeding.
Right.
Because otherwise Michael just keeps doing it over and over and over and over. It's something outside of the core group has to change, and that change is Michael, and that's brought about by things outside of what they're doing.
Right. Do you think, and I haven't consumed, because I know you've sent me links to a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And there have been a few interviews and a few things that I haven't consumed much outside outside this.
Right.
But do you think any of what happened in season 2 had to do with Ted Danson and maybe them not using Ted Danson enough? Instead of him being support for the 4 main characters, because there is definitely a character arc for Michael in season 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In fact, there is a big character arc because he basically learns what it means to be human to the point where he is declared human. Yeah, amusingly. Right? And he starts to understand it. And the same with Janet. Janet's delightful. The actress who plays her is fantastic. And switching back and forth between Janet and bad Janet, she's really good. And so she had a character arc, which was briefly ruined by the presence of Jason Mantzoukas, who I absolutely cannot stand. Though, have you ever listened to a podcast called How Did This Get Made?
No.
It is an absolutely fantastic podcast with Jason Mantzoukas, June Diane Raphael, and the third one. The guy he's the primary host, too.
Oh, good.
And I can't remember.
He's really made an impression on you.
Yeah, he really did. Paul Scheer.
Okay.
And they talk about bad movies. They sit down, they watch the movie. Not during the podcast, but before the podcast, they watch the movie in preparation. They take notes, they bring on another guest, and they just have a hilarious discussion about some old, really terrible movies. And originally they used to have a lot of inside baseball stuff that they would get in there. And they sort of moved away from that to talking more about just making fun of the movies they were watching step by step. It's still pretty entertaining, but their older episodes were definitely better. In fact, I haven't listened to it in a while because their old episodes were really good. Oh man, they did Johnny Mnemonic a couple of weeks ago though. I have to listen to that one.
Yeah.
It's a worthwhile podcast, and Jason Mantzoukas is minimally offensive in that.
Minimally.
I really hate him. I really do. He was Derek.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right.
And that sort of screaming moron is what he plays in everything when he's not being just outright disgusting and offensive. But somehow they managed to rein him in a little bit for the podcast where he's not terrible. So I enjoy How Did This Get Made. I highly recommend it.
Sure.
At least I recommended a year ago. I can't speak for where it's gone since then.
Okay.
But I will go back and check out Johnny Mnemonic. I love that movie. The other last week I watched what the heck was the movie? The other Keanu Reeves movie, based on the comic book about the guy who did the superhero exorcist with lung cancer. Constantine.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
With lung cancer. Okay.
Yeah, he did. He had lung cancer.
We're fine. I don't know. I didn't read it.
Okay. Well, the movie with Keanu Reeves was a movie with Keanu Reeves. But I thoroughly enjoyed that movie.
Yeah.
And I also am probably the only person in the world who will admit to liking Johnny Mnemonic.
That's the one with the dolphin.
Yeah, there was a dolphin computer hacker in it with Ice. Yeah. Was it Ice-T in that?
Sure, why not?
There was some rapper was in it. He was the caretaker of the dolphin, the hacker dolphin.
Okay.
Yeah, it was Ice-T.
I've seen it. I've seen the movie. I thought I had blocked it from my memory, but no, it turns out I remember the dolphin.
Yep.
Who knew?
I do not recommend this to anyone. Okay, I do not recommend Johnny Mnemonic, and I do not recommend Constantine. If you go in knowing that they're terrible, they're not like what was the other one? Never mind. I just thought of another terrible movie that I thoroughly enjoy. Hudson Hawk. You ever see that one?
You have a taste for these terrible, awful movies.
Certain ones.
They're not really B movies. So I could understand really liking a B movie kind of thing. These were supposed to be AAA films.
Right. I think that's what gets me the most about them is their earnestness. When people make a B movie, they know they're making a B movie. And as hard as they might try, everybody is just a little self-aware in them. But when Bruce Willis, was it Bruce Willis and who was it in Hudson Hawk? But Bruce Willis was convinced that Hudson Hawk was going to be a hit.
Mm-hmm.
He was going to, that was what everyone wanted to see. He was a singing cat burglar in it. Him and Danny Aiello were partners. They were singing cat burglars. And they would sing songs to keep, while they were robbing museums and stuff, to keep themselves in sync, right? So they would figure out the timing, like override the videotape while I, cut the alarm and yada, yada, yada. And they would sing a song in sync with each other so that as they kept singing the song, they would do things at just the right moment.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the opening that establishes this has them robbing a museum, and he's, and they start off like whisper singing. Would you like to swing on a star? Because they had to use only what do you call it? What do you call it when a song has moved into public domain? They have to use only public domain stuff in the movie. So they're saying, "Would you like to swing on a star?" And they start off whispers.
Whoa.
What?
Whoa. Is this explained in the movie that they have to only use public domain songs? Or is this just because the movie is on such a bad budget?
Yeah, that was the reason. To avoid paying the licensing fees for this music.
Okay.
So they start off whisper singing it as they're robbing a bank. And it's like Bruce Willis whispering, "Would you like to swing on a star?" Yada, yada, yada. And gradually they start singing in the middle of this museum at the top of their lungs as they come together, having pulled off the operation and dancing in the middle of it. And that is just where this movie is going to be fantastic. And it can't decide whether it's like slapstick comedy or whether it wants to be taken seriously or whatever. It's a tonal nightmare. This one I highly recommend. Everybody go out and watch Hudson Hawk.
Oh, dear.
Go out and watch it. You can probably watch it on YouTube for free. Okay? It can't be expensive anywhere. And then tell me, were they making a comedy or a drama? And I can't remember who was it. Who was the woman? Was it not Andie MacDowell?
Andie MacDowell. Okay.
She is a nun who works for the Vatican Secret Service.
What?
Yes, because he ends up getting drafted by 3 different by a group of criminals, or a husband and wife criminal duo. Sandra Bernhardt was Bernhardt. Sandra Bernhardt was the wife. And also to steal a Leonardo da Vinci's gold making machine. Because Leonardo da Vinci had actually been an alchemist too.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I bet you didn't know that. So he's hired to steal the part of the gold making machine that they need to finish it from the Vatican Museum. But then James Coburn and a group of CIA agents who are all named after candy. They were
does this all sound terrifyingly familiar all of a sudden?
Thereafter, and then Andie MacDowell, the Vatican Secret Service nun, also gets involved.
I just want to point out to you, in the Discord chat, I have posted the currently circulating cover, quote unquote, cover for Hudson Hawk, as can be found on many streaming services for the nominal sum of approximately $3.
Yep.
If you don't just want to watch crackle ads.
And worth it. Pay that money and watch it.
But look at this. Look at this cover image. It's I don't know why anybody thought this was a good representation of Hudson Hawk, no matter the quality of the movie. It's Bruce Willis in a hat, dark glasses, head cocked to one side, mouth slightly open, looking like he has just forgotten everything about himself he ever knew.
Yeah.
It's like it.
Sorry.
Terrible. Watch it at your own risk. Don't blame us.
And here it was. The story was originally written by Bruce Willis and Robert Kraft, who were buddies, who thought this movie was going to be great. Okay, and Bruce Willis still defends it. He still says this is the movie that everybody wanted. I know some people didn't understand it, but this movie was great. And it's what everybody wanted. They just wanted, two Goombas from Brooklyn who were cat burglars and, just the average guy. And this is how he talks like, It's like,
okay.
So good.
So the timing on this movie, the timing on this movie is a little suspicious. Okay, this movie came out in 1991. Now I'm going to check a thing real quick.
Yeah. And I think if you say what I think you're going to say, you're going to be right.
Okay, so this movie, as near as I can determine, was meant to help sort of spur along Bruce Willis's album and recording career.
Yes. And in fact, the character Hudson Hawk was actually from a song that Bruce Willis had written called about a classy cat burglar.
Yeah. It's
it was also kind of like it was right at the point Die Hard 2 had just come out. Moonlighting had ended like 2 years before.
Right.
So Bruce Willis was at that point where he could convince people to do a vanity project.
Right.
Which is always, that's how you know it's going to be good. Right? Because it's the movie that it's the movie that they were desperate to make. It's like, this is the movie I always wanted to make. And now that I have the, everybody thinks I'm gold, now I can make this movie. So Bruce Willis was at the top of his career, and so he was able to get this project greenlit. And man, I am so glad he was able to do that.
Yeah. So what we're talking about here is The Return of Bruno is the album. And it's Bruce Willis singing R&B, basically Motown R&B kind of stuff, with a variety of guest performers of quality.
Yes.
I mean, he's got Ry Cooder on here. He's got Booker T. Jones, the Pointer Sisters, the Temptations. Yes, okay, all these people, right? Anyway, all these people are on this album, right? And it came out in January of '87.
Yes.
Hudson Hawk came out in 1991. You think, oh my God, that's like 4 years down the road. They can't be related. But you have to remember that Hudson Hawk was in production at least a year before that. Which puts it at 1990. So not that far apart.
And the other thing was that before 88, Bruce Willis was not really a big name.
Well, Moonlighting was doing pretty well.
Yeah, but he was a TV star. And then Die Hard. Die Hard was 88.
Yep.
And
all of a sudden he's an action movie star, which nobody really knew.
Right. And then oh my God, that was Look Who's Talking came between Die Hard and Die Hard 2.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
The Bonfire of the Vanities. So, yeah, even if he had wanted to make the movie based on that song, he did not have the clout in Hollywood to do it until at least 89 or 90.
Yeah.
So, and that's what happened. Anyway, I can't recommend this movie enough.
All right. Well, again, watch it at your own risk.
It is nonsensical. If you can figure it out, please let me know. If you can figure out what it's supposed to be, please let me know.
I'm trying to think of all the Bruce Willis films I like. It's a very short list. I know that.
Yeah. Okay.
None of the Die Hards are on it. None of the Look Who's Talkings are on it.
You, sir. Really?
Really?
Die Hard and Die Hard 2?
Yeah, can't. Didn't enjoy them.
Okay.
Didn't enjoy 1, never bothered with 2.
Okay, let's see what
or
other.
anything beyond that. 12 Monkeys is on that list.
12 Monkeys was a really good movie.
Yes.
What about The Fifth Element?
The Fifth Element is on that list.
Good.
I think that's the end of it.
Wasn't it Armageddon?
No.
He was in that, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Trying to think.
Okay, I'll throw Unbreakable on there.
I never saw Unbreakable.
Yeah. If you're gonna watch an M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong movie, that's the one to watch because essentially it's the best of the batch.
Really? You think it was better than what was the one with the dead kid? Why can't I remember it now?
No, I don't think it was better than The Sixth Sense. I mean, I do think it was better than The Sixth Sense because The Sixth Sense I figured out from its trailers.
Which is okay.
I just no.
See, no,
I'm sorry.
This is the thing about The Sixth Sense. Yes, while watching that movie, I figured out the twist. But I don't think that's a bad thing. Where I think M. Night Shyamalan went wrong, well, one of the many, many ways he went wrong, was he became the twist director. And so gradually what his movies would be about would be him just like, pulling back the curtain saying, surprise, this is it. And then the twist just comes out of nowhere because he was just trying to make the twist unguessable, or the twist was just there for the sake of it. Like The Village would have been just as interesting, which I realize that's not a high bar to set. The Village actually would have been more interesting if the audience was in on the premise from the beginning. Because then you have the tension of, are these people going to figure it out? Are they going to escape? That stuff. Okay. The idea of just hiding that in a twist was just to have a twist, But I think The Sixth Sense was well done because the story was the twist in a narratively well done way. Okay, the story was about the twist. The twist wasn't there just because it needed a twist, and the story would have worked just as well without the twist. Because the story is really about a man discovering he is dead, So, anyway. I never saw Unbreakable, so I can't judge, but I will say I really liked The Sixth Sense. Even though I figured it out, but I don't think I think it's good when you can figure it out, I mean, I like the first season of The Good Place for the same reason, which is where we started.
I don't think I should be figuring it out in the trailers, though.
No, okay, fair enough. Well, but here's the question: is the movie interesting even if you know the twist?
Don't know. Didn't bother to see it because I figured it out in the trailer.
Oh, well then. Okay. Because anyway. I would argue that if the movie is good, even if you know the twist, I mean, that's how it should be.
Yes, that is how it should be.
Like
it should work knowing it or not.
Using The Good Place as an example again, because that was you could say it was built around its twist, but it really wasn't. Even if you saw that coming, that that they were it was basically just a complicated version of No Exit. Even if you saw that coming, the show was still compelling and interesting. It remains compelling and interesting. I still enjoy it. I'm still watching it. I can't emphasize that enough. Well, I did tell you that I have finally let you off the hook for pronunciation, but
yes.
That doesn't mean fans have let you off the hook.
No.
Anjis.
Fans are the worst. If we didn't have those, we'd be fine.
Anjis. Anjis. On our website. Do I have to give the website address? I don't know how to do this. I usually zone out when you're doing it.
Yeah, I know. I can tell.
On our website at digressionsandragons.com in the comments for episode 46, Anji's corrected your pronunciation.
Right.
Because you said,
which I find extra humorous because I got it right the first time I said it a couple episodes ago.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you hedged and you were like Anjis, whatever. Anyway,
yeah,
it is a hard J, like in James.
Okay.
So
So noted. I will forget by the next time, but thank you for pointing it out this time.
Nathan, remember, I guess it was episode 46. That was the episode where we had a whole bunch of feedback.
Right.
And,
foolishly.
Yeah, we should have saved some in retrospect. And there were a couple of questions from Nathan that we sort of picked apart as indecipherable.
Yes, Nathan of the ambiguous questioning.
Yeah. Well, he has less ambiguous his questions.
Well, isn't that lovely?
Yes. So the first question he asked was, can you implement storytelling into the mechanics of a system to account for role-playing? Which we said, what are you trying to ask? And he provided an example and said, your character is on trial and stands in front of a lord to beg for their life. The system might ask you to roll to persuade or charm the lord. The GM may ask you to role play that out. But what if the system said something like, the GM may grant the player a maximum of advantage 1 or disadvantage 2 on persuasion checks based on their roleplay choices. So role-playing, or acting in character, thank you, literally became part of the mechanics of the game.
That's called a house rule?
Yeah, but what if it's written into the system?
Then it's written into the system. The house rule has been written into the system. I don't see any problem with it. If it's in the rules, it's part of the system. But yes,
I was going to go even further and say it's not a house rule; it's part of the rules.
Okay.
I mean, okay. So let's say a character decides to break open a door, right?
Okay, I'm going to break open a door.
Right. So in D&D, I would say, okay, make a strength check.
I make a strength check.
Okay. Now, let's say I'm going to use this crowbar to help me break open the door.
I'm going to use a crowbar to help me break it down.
Okay. Well, okay. Thank you for this.
Mm-hmm.
The rules are pretty clear, especially if you read the DM's guide, and I use pretty clear in massive air quotes because I'm talking about Dungeons & Dragons right now. The rules are pretty clear that the GM is empowered and expected to provide bonuses and penalties to modify the situation based on whatever tools or choices the characters make. And using a crowbar in D&D would be make a strength check with advantage, for example. Or in Pathfinder, it would be make a strength check with a +5 bonus. A +5 circumstance bonus or whatever.
Right. Okay.
This is no different. And it is part of the general rules. Okay. If the character, he, tries to persuade the Lord and appeals to the Lord based on some specific information he knows about the Lord, I can't think of any example off the top of my head, or gives a particularly bad opinion, a bad argument, then yeah, the GM is empowered to add or subtract that. And that's part of action adjudication. And it's a part of every role-playing game system that exists. I mean, if you're running your favorite Star Wars-y game, right? And you felt the player had done a particularly good, would you not give them some boost dice or whatever?
Yes, I absolutely would. I would boost dice the heck out of somebody who I thought had been particularly clever, effective, or entertaining.
And is that not written into the rules?
That is written into the rules. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't, and I'm reading his note here.
Mm-hmm.
Where he was talking about the advent of live plays and acting as a big part of the game. And he was wondering if you could still focus on the performance aspect without shelving the game mechanics in the process. I feel like there's a lot of outlying presumptions about that particular note.
Yeah.
That they're informing that note. The first of which being that the point of the live play, at least most of the big ones you'd be thinking about when you say that acting is a big part of the game. I feel like the point of those live plays is not a presentation of the rules or a necessarily authentic experience of the game as much as it is to be an entertainment.
Right. So it's not about just playing the game. It's about giving a performance. And that's why acting is a big part of those games.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you can run into a situation where you are punishing people who are not good at acting.
Right.
And so the question you have to ask yourself in a situation like this, if let's say you have two different players at the table who are both trying to convince the Lord of the same thing. One of the players has paid attention to absolutely everything that happens in the game, understands the Lord's motivations, desires, goals, whatever, has picked up on all of your backstory and all your subtle cues, and formulates an argument perfectly designed to convince the Lord. Okay?
Right.
But he is a terrible actor.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, you have a player who has not done any of that, but really gets into character and stands up on his chair and gives a rousing performance that is otherwise basically just him dropping to his knees and begging for his life.
Right.
Okay. No other argument, just that. Okay. Which of those two players deserves the bonus? Do they both deserve an equal bonus? Which one do you want to reward more? Which behavior would you rather see in the game? Because that's ultimately what you're deciding.
Okay. We understand I don't GM the way that the book suggests you GM, right?
Of course. No one does.
We understand that. We understand that my approach is oftentimes not in accord with anybody else's approach.
Mm-hmm.
Frankly, my solution to that situation is you have the guy who's into the performance of the scene be into the performance of the scene, and you have the guy who's gone to all the or gal who's gone to all the trouble of recording and keeping track of all the information and knows all the stuff. Have that person feed the actor the lines relating to the information.
Right. And you know what, though? That's not just a weird quirk of GMing either. I mean, that's presumably the player who has been keeping track of everything is playing a character who is, who figures stuff out and who's really good at working out the mysteries. And the person who's the really good actor is playing the personable, charismatic character.
Right.
So in the situation of the game world, that is the person who goes into the library and researches the case, giving the information to the person who actually presents the case.
Exactly. And so therefore they both get the bonus. They both earned it.
Right. But okay. But that's not quite what I was driving at.
Oh, all right.
It's just that these bonuses work as an incentive for certain behaviors at the table.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
And so, and I'm not saying there's a right answer to this question either. But what I'm saying, no, there isn't. You could reward both types of players equally with bonuses, saying either one of these two approaches are a valid strategy for getting ahead in my game.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could decide, you know what? I'm less interested in the person who comes with natural acting ability than I am interested in the person who takes an interest in the game and the story and understands the motives and the characters and yada, yada, yada. And so that is what I will reward. Or you could say, you know what? I'm not running, like Sherlock Holmes meets Game of Thrones here. I just want a good performance. So that's what I'm going to reward. Okay. You're going to make whatever decision you want, but that's what's at stake when you start rewarding this. And the reason I don't like to reward good acting is because it's more of a specialized talent, and it's something that not as many people are comfortable with.
Okay, but what's wrong with just rewarding players for what they're good at? I mean, you may not be good at acting. You might be a good information collator. And I feel like as a GM, I need to figure out a way to reward you for that anyway.
Okay. But now,
because you've brought your talent to the table, whatever it might be. And so, if that works with your character and whatnot, then let's reward that.
Okay. But then the problem is what you're giving out as a participation award.
No, you still have to use it. You can't just show up and get it. You have to use it. And you have to use it in furtherance of the game or the story or something.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not gonna reward you just because, you happen to be a juggler, and even though there's no juggling involved in the game we're presently playing, you sit there at the table and juggle. I'm not gonna reward you for that.
But now are you not creating an incentive for the person to try and solve every problem with juggling?
No, because you only reward it when it's appropriate. You're the GM. You're supposed to think.
But if the player can find a way to make it appropriate in every situation,
well, then we're just getting silly, and I will have words with that player.
Well, okay, but
because the same trick does not entertain for all eternity. Okay,
but
it doesn't.
But can you argue that, so a guy gets disarmed and his magical sword goes flying through the air? Could the juggler not argue that his juggling skill should make him a more deft catch?
If it's been demonstrated that his character juggles, sure.
Okay. And if the player then tries to demonstrate it by showing off their catching skills at the table?
That might be something I ask. I don't know. I feel like on the one hand, GMs take a lot of umbrage and seek a lot of potential difficulty where none really exists.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so if we're going to postulate that I have a player who wants to apply juggling everywhere he can possibly apply it, then okay, I might, as the GM, I might say, yeah, once or twice I'll that'll be okay. But also as the GM, I'm going to know that if my player is trying to seek an advantage via, I really wish we hadn't picked this example, but via juggling every chance he or she gets, then we're going to have a talk. We're going to say, there are places where this is appropriate, okay, and where it works.
Well, okay,
and we're gonna sit down and we're gonna set some ground rules for it. But by the same token, juggling is not appropriate everywhere. Something like somebody who's really good personally at research and that kind of stuff, and knowing research methods and those sorts of things, and they want to bring that to the table, that has more general appeal or general usefulness, I guess, in a game.
Right.
I mean, depending on what sort of game you're running. But anyway, in general, it's more useful.
Sure. And
I don't feel like they're going to get rewarded every single time they bring out the research handbook. I feel like it's going to be, is it a moment in the game where they can persuade me as the GM that it has value and relevance and is particularly useful here, then maybe they get a bonus for that. And sometimes I'll say, no, sorry, not good enough, not deserving of a bonus today. And yes, that will be arbitrary, and yes, that will be inconsistent, and yes, that will be subject largely to my mood. And you know what? I've never once had a player complain about it.
I've never once had a player complain argument.
Yes. Sure, they might grouse, I suppose, in their own free time elsewhere, but that doesn't mean it's a terrible game because of it. Mm-hmm. It just means that we have a disagreement. And if my players are mature enough to be playing at my table in the first place, then I would hope they're mature enough to say, wait a minute, that doesn't seem fair. Instead of just grumbling all the time. And then from then on, maybe it won't be fair. Maybe it just won't be a thing at all. Because that will be the only solution that can make it fair. Or maybe we have a discussion and everybody says, okay, we've all got these special talents. Let's apply them. Is that as a GM, I will use my judgment as to what qualifies and what doesn't qualify. And I don't think the not everybody's an actor bugaboo is as big a bugaboo as some people would. By the way, did you know bugaboo is probably related to bugbear? I thought I'd point that out.
Yes.
It's as big a bugaboo.
It's a cutting room floor factoid.
Yes. is as big a bugaboo as it is sometimes made out to be, because you've got somebody there who can adjudicate that. Right. And attempt to do it fairly. And if it's not fair, then somebody else is capable, whether they do it or not, they are capable of standing up and saying, I don't feel like that was fair. Can we maybe rethink that?
Right.
Okay.
I get where you're coming from. It's just, for me, it's a question of what I want my game to be about. Sure. And as far as a role-playing game is a game of making decisions. Mm-hmm. It's not a game about who is the best actor.
Okay.
Okay, because if it were a game about who is the best actor, I would always win. Granted, if it's a game about who makes the best decisions, I also still always win. But
Yes, you also still win.
anyway, okay, so moving on, he also clarified his second question, or a second question. I can't remember how many he had originally asked.
A couple hundred, I think.
Yeah. Can you implement rule modification into the systems of a game to account for homebrewing? And again, he explained by way of example. Imagine you have built a system, aware that players will modify it. Could you write a set of guidelines or a framework on ways that system could be modified without sacrificing the game's balance? This speaks to Scott's comment on breaking down mechanics, but after you break down your game, could you build the staging for another person to rebuild it?
Okay, so when he talks about, when he says players, he's indicating players as the generic description of everybody involved with the game, right? He's not talking about players versus GMs.
Yeah, that's my read.
Okay.
Well, okay, so like, I can think of some things right off the bat that fit what he's saying. For example, in the Pathfinder Advanced Race Guide, there are all these guidelines for creating homebrewed races, which basically are breaking down the different powers into, or different abilities of different races as worth different amounts of points, and you just, build your race from that. Okay.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. The problem with that sort of thing is that in the end, no matter how many options you can come up with, because that's what it comes down to, is it's just a giant book of options and their point costs.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how many options you can come up with, you can't cover everything. And what a home brewer wants is they want the thing that isn't already in the game.
Right.
Okay.
They want the thing nobody else has thought of, basically. And
it also necessitates comparing incomparable things.
What he wants is a modular system.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, check out GURPS.
Check out Big Eye Smallmouth.
Mm-hmm. Check out. What's the hero system?
Is it the hero system? I think
hero system. Yeah, it was. Hero system.
Yeah, because they all do stuff like that. They all say, "Oh, you want to be special and unique? Well, here's the specialist and most unique system you can do that with."
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay. I like I say, Big Eye Smallmouth, Silver Age Sentinels, the Tri-Stat system. Basically, It was all about that. You customize anything and everything about your character in that system. And each one was guaranteed to be somewhat unique just by virtue of the way the system works. But I don't often enjoy that because I feel like that takes a little bit of the flavor of the universe or the flavor of the game away from it.
Well, yeah, but now looking at this from a homebrewer perspective is that kind of the point is to make the universe your own.
Right.
That's the selling point, is that it strips off their universe.
Right. And I've never been much of a home brewer, so.
Oh, okay.
I'm okay with that.
See,
it's a piece of my life I'm fine with. Yes. We are different people, Scott.
Yes, we are. But here's the thing: is what he's bringing up is it's custom monster rules are the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like okay, so here's the monsters, and then here's the system you can build to make monsters of your own. And it's fine as long as you can work within the constraints and find the options that they have already created.
Yeah.
And the more you try to get away with what they have already presented, the more kind of off the map you are, and the more you just kind of have to wing it,
Yeah.
So,
I mean, provided you understand any given system well enough, you can homebrew.
And that's the key.
And keep it,
Sorry.
And keep it within the limits of the system. So you're not breaking things, you're just changing them. I think does that really answer the question?
Not really, but I still think that Nathan doesn't quite know what he's asking.
Question arose from seeking homebrew character classes for D&D that were inherently game-breaking. Got me thinking about an official custom character creator that would allow you to build any of those PCs in a balanced way that would work alongside official characters, so I can be a legitimate rainbow unicorn detective. Does that make sense? No.
Well, yes, yes, it does. What you're
there's
saying
no
is,
sense to be made out of rainbow unicorn detective.
Okay, sorry, I was actually being serious. Class build. What? There's a what was it? Skills and powers in AD&D Second Edition broke down all the classes into point buy. So you could buy mix and match options from different classes and put all of that together. And I think Pathfinder has an option for that too. Maybe it's in the advanced class guide.
Maybe.
I don't know what's in that one.
I don't either.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, but again, it's going to be limited, and the home brewer is still going to find that it doesn't do what they want it to do.
Yeah.
So,
doggone you, homebrewers.
You cannot build homebrewing into the system for the same reason that you cannot be an establishment punk.
Yeah. It's part of the definition, frankly. Unless we haven't redefined homebrewing, have we? Nobody's done that yet.
All right. Well, so we hope that helped, Nathan, but we doubt it.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe.
Aaron M.
Yes?
We were discussing Wizards of the Coast choosing to sell their Eberron live document and then threatening to later release an actual published book based on how the live document went, so that you get to buy Eberron twice. Which is what we facetiously referred to it as.
Right.
In response to WotC selling the Eberron playtest and basing their decision to sell a setting guide on how well it sells, should a person ever buy something that they don't want if it increases their chances of getting the thing they do want?
No.
No.
Do I need to expand on that?
I don't know. Do you have an expansion?
I might have, because that to me sounds like blackmail.
Okay.
It sounds like blackmail. Like, if you don't buy this, then we're not going to give you that. And that strikes me as a bad way to conduct business. Now, obviously from the other side, the idea is, well, we're not sure there's a demand for this, so we're going to gauge whether there's demand or not based on the number of sales of this thing over here, rather than actually listening to what people have been saying for, 4 years now? 5 years?
Well, yeah, but people say a lot of things.
And this is true.
They don't always put
people
their money
do
where
say a
their
lot
mouth
of things.
is. See, actually,
actually, here's how you're wrong. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna disagree because of your specific example. Suddenly it made me realize something.
Uh-oh.
Okay. So you have a company and they say, we don't know if there's an interest for this product, so we're going to sell this lesser product first. And if there's enough interest in it, we'll expand on it later. We'll support it. Which is actually decisions that companies make all the time anyway. Sure. Right? I mean, that's how sequels get made. The first one was popular, we'll make another one. Or
that's right, whether it needs it or not.
Right. And if a game in a franchise isn't popular, they make the decision to axe the franchise.
Right.
And you can't fault a company for making those decisions.
No, that's part of their business, yeah.
Right. So, if a company comes out and legitimately says, we're test marketing this to see how things go, and if it goes well, we're going to sell, we're going to hopefully put out this bigger product, at least you as a customer are now fully informed. Right? And so buying something you don't want just to increase the chances of a product you do want existing is just a value proposition. Is it worth it to you to spend $20 on this thing you're going to throw out for the potential for that big book to be published that you'll be able to buy it later? Okay? And that's a very simple question to answer. Is it worth, so let's say they're going to publish the hardcover book for $50, right? So what you're really saying is, are you willing to spend $70 to get the hardcover book?
Right.
I mean, that's all it is. And that's a very simple question that anybody can answer. So Should a person ever buy something they don't want to increase the chances of getting the thing they do want? Yes, if they think the chance of getting what they do want is worth what they're spending on the thing they don't. But that's all buying decisions. All buying decisions are, do you think what you're getting is worth what you're paying? In this case, though, it's just they're not buying the book or the document or whatever. They're buying the potential future product. They're putting a down payment. And they also know full well they're taking a chance that it might not exist. So any person can or can't. This is not a should thing. There's no like moral value here. This is just a simple business transaction. Is it worth it? Then spend the money. If it's not worth it to you, don't spend the money. End of story. And what I do think is that companies like Wizards of the Coast should be honest like this and say, look, this is purely a test market thing, okay? We're putting this product out. If there is enough interest in it, it could lead to a future product. No promises, but we guarantee if this doesn't sell, there will never be a hardcover. At least they're being 100% honest. And the way Wizards of the Coast did it was almost honest, and then they like hedged their bets. And it's like, well, we want you to value both. If they just came out and said, if Merles had gone on Twitter and said, hey, look, this is the reality. We don't know if there's a market for Eberron. And we can't convince the bean counters to sell a hardcover book for Eberron. So we're putting out this live document, this live edited playtest document. And that's all it is. It's just a live playtest document. You'd spend $20 on it, you don't. If you spend $20 on it, you get that. But if it sells well, we might be able to publish Eberron in the future. That is the hard truth of the situation. Make your decisions however you want. At least that would have been honest. Okay? And there would be nothing wrong with that. I mean, people would complain, but people will complain no matter what. Okay? And then people will call it blackmail. Okay? The problem is that blackmail is still an honest business transaction. You pay me or this information will be revealed. The problem with blackmail is usually that it's a dishonest business transaction because it's, you know what? Why don't you pay me again? I still have this information. Hey,
you still have money.
Why don't you keep paying me? That's the problem with blackmail. Quite frankly, blackmail is just another free market transaction. I have no problem with it at all.
No problem at all. Okay.
Nope, none. So
I feel icky about that. I mean, I can understand that it is just a business deal. That's fine. That's great. It's not a business deal I like.
Right. But well, then you don't buy it.
Oh.
Right?
I don't?
Yeah, you just don't.
I thought I had to. I thought I had to keep up with everything.
No. And that's the beauty of it. That's why this is, because it's totally voluntary participation. But you also now know, like, let's say you did actually, for some insane reason, care about someday getting an Eberron hardcover book.
Okay.
Okay?
I can say that.
Right. Now, you know full well, if you're not willing to pay for this document, that book might never get made.
Hooray.
Yeah.
Okay. 'Cause I hate Eberron.
Well, right. But if you did care about that, you're saying, well, I'm willing to take that chance because that chance is not worth $20 to me, right?
Sure.
It's still an honest transaction.
I don't know. I feel like I'll be letting my fellow gamer down. Well, okay. See, that's where the argument breaks. And that's where, like, Aaron gets into this whole should a person. That's the problem, is you don't have a duty to anyone else to make sure that Eberron exists. Okay? The people who want Eberron to exist, this is a specific action they can take to make Eberron exist. But you don't owe it to anyone else. And this is the same as everything. Okay? This is the same as Arlo. We talked about Arlo the first time, like a year ago, because, or more than that, because he put out a video that upset me,
where he said that even if you didn't like Metroid Federation Force, which nobody liked because it was awful, you owed it to yourself and to other Metroid fans to buy it, or else there would never be another Metroid game. Now, that is a true statement that if the Metroid franchise stops making money, Nintendo will stop making it because that's how businesses work. But no, nobody owes it to anybody to participate in a transaction if they don't think it's worth it. Okay. So I looked at that and I said, no, you know what? Making more Metroid games is not worth the risk. It's not worth me buying this awful, awful game that I will never play. Especially because of the amount of uncertainty in it. So no, but Arlo was wrong in telling me that I had some sort of moral duty to do that. That's not how it works. It's my own choice. It's everybody's own choice. Aaron, it is your choice. Okay, I think we have one more. And it is from Jan.
Oh, hello, Jan. We're sure that's Jan and not Jan or John or...
Could be Jan.
Because I learned earlier that J's were pronounced with James, with a hard J.
Okay. Jan. Janet. Damn it, Janet. Okay. By email to you, I believe.
Yeah.
Wrote
to the digressionsanddragons at gmail.com.
Right. Which is you, because you don't let me.
Which is basically me, because you're not allowed to touch it.
What do local gaming shops provide in your country that makes them so worthy of support? What should...
Nothing. Oh. There's more?
What should such a shop provide in these days of the web?
Now can I answer?
Yeah, by all means.
I didn't give it away, did I?
No. It's completely It's a completely surprise twist.
Okay, good. Glad to hear it. What do game shops provide? Nothing. And I'm speaking from my own experience here at the local level because my game shops are terrible. My game shop one singular. Terrible. In theory, a game shop is where you go to get a game. You can purchase a game there that might be of interest to you. Mm-hmm. So already we're at strike one.
Right.
You can meet people with which to game. Strike two. And they can provide support and facilities and services which will enable you to game in the first place.
Right.
Strike three.
Now, I understand you're awarding these strikes to your own local game community, not all game stores ever.
That's correct.
Right. See, we're right back to the same topic again for me.
Oh.
Because this is the worthy of support thing bothers me.
Okay.
Because once again, it comes down to this.
Go ahead. Do it. You know you want to. Do it.
There's no moral imperative to support a business. None. Okay? I know, because this is a big thing in the online community. It's just one of the 1,000 things that the online community just screams at each other, because that's all the online community does anymore is just scream at each other. At least it used to be what we screamed about each other before we started just screaming about politics. Anyway.
Right.
Okay?
Carry on.
This is the thing. Some people argue that all gamers have a duty to support their local game store. Otherwise, game stores will go away forever. And then gaming will die.
Hooray.
Okay.
I mean, boo. I mean, I don't know what I mean.
Right? It is a specious argument that gaming will cease to exist if game stores go away, because there'll be nowhere to play games and meet people in real life and whatever. As you have correctly pointed out, by the way, Jan, that now with the web allowing people to play games online, even that fundamental service of game stores really is not something you can't get anywhere else.
Right.
You know, unless you're like me and actually prefer games in real life.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And here's the truth of it. Okay. If nobody shops at a game store, it will go out of business. If everybody stops shopping at all of the game stores, they will all go out of business. And game stores are dying, just as comic book stores are dying. They're closing up very fast right now because people can just buy the stuff they want online and they can get whatever they want online. So if to you it is important to have a local game store, then go buy stuff at your local game store. And that is worth what you're paying. Because you have to remember, like when you make a buying decision, you're deciding I'm going to get in my car, drive down to the local game store. I'm going to pay more money because I can have any game that the game store has, I can have it delivered on Amazon cheaper right to my door within a day. Okay. So, you have to decide the time, energy, and additional cost that you put into going to the game store. Is that worth the existence of your game store? Okay. If you utilize your game store's facilities frequently, then yes, that is worth it. Fine. Some people are free riders. This is a normal issue with just about any system. This is game theory. Okay. They go to their game store. They like taking advantage of the services. They play games with people at the game store. And then they walk out without ever buying anything. And if everybody is a free rider, then the game store closes. And then nobody can go there. That is a risk free riders take. Okay. They know that risk. And if they don't know that risk, they are stupid and deserve to lose their game store. Okay. But they know the risk they take. And the game store allows them to take that risk by not finding a way to monetize the services they provide. Okay. So the game store is complicit in that. If the game store is so concerned about free riders, it is the game store, the guy who owns the game store, the girl who owns the game store, whoever, the game store itself, their responsibility is to figure out a way to entice people to pay for the services they are providing. They should charge for those services, maybe. Charge for table space.
Wait a minute here. I have to pull you up short here.
Mm-hmm.
Because the problem seems to be that you cannot charge gamers for things because gamers don't want to pay for things.
Then you go out of business.
You should provide that gaming space service for free.
Says who?
You should No. Says gamers.
No.
No. That's what they say.
Well, then guess
what?
Why
are you charging me?
But here's the problem. Then gamers are not going to have that space.
Oh,
okay.
It's unfair.
So, no.
You're preventing me from enjoying my games.
It's utterly fair. That's why they don't like it. Nobody wants anything to be fair. Everyone wants things to be unfair in their favor.
Right.
Okay. What is unfair is to expect a service for free. Okay. No matter what, if the game's even, you could say, oh, well, it's just, I'm just sitting at a table taking up space. It's like, yeah, who's paying the electric bill so that you can see your character sheet? Who's paying to heat it in the winter and air condition it in the summer? Who's cleaning the bathroom that you use? Depending on the game store you go to, probably no one, but
right.
It's like even just maintaining that space costs someone money. So the fair thing is for you to be charged rent for using that space. But, like I said, people don't want fair. They want unfair in their favor.
Mm-hmm.
But this is what it comes down to, is it is the game store's job to figure out how to compete. If they don't figure out how to compete, they die. And that's important because game stores will not improve if they don't have to compete, If every game store, imagine if every game store in the world, no matter the quality, was paid a stipend by all game publishers just to keep their doors open and provide empty space for gaming. Right?
That's going to be expensive.
Yeah, it would be expensive. But what incentive is there for a game store, especially if they can't sell the books? Like you can't charge for the games, but we will pay you a stipend to provide a space to play in. Okay? What incentive is there to keep the space clean? I'm not going to make more if more people come to my store than someone else because I can't sell anything. Right?
Mm-hmm.
What incentive is there for me to offer snacks? Even, to sell snacks.
So what you're suggesting then, if I'm reading you rightly, sir, What you are suggesting is that if you make use of a game store, you should put some effort into supporting that game store. But if you do not make use of a game store, then you are under no obligation to do anything about whether that game store continues to exist or not.
No, that is not what I'm saying. There is no obligation. If you walk into a game store and play a game, and you play a game at their table, which they have freely allowed you to do, and you walk out without ever having bought anything, you have done nothing wrong. Okay. But you accept the risk that tomorrow there may not be that game store because everybody did that. Okay. But if the game store, if someone is giving something away for free, there is nothing morally wrong with taking it. I'm sorry. Right. If I offer you a plate of cookies, I say, here, I break the plate of cookies. Do you want some cookies? Is it immoral for you to accept them?
Well, I mean, it could be. Maybe you need those cookies to survive. Maybe you're just giving me the cookies out of politeness, and you'll starve to death if I take those cookies.
Is it? And it's your responsibility to know that?
Yes, absolutely.
That's absurd.
Oh.
And if you're really concerned about it, I mean, in that case, you could obviously say, no, I do not need any cookies. You need them to live. Eat all your cookies. I do not want any. You can refuse them. But if you didn't refuse something that was freely offered, you have not committed a sin. If I offer you a cookie and you take it, despite the fact that, I need that cookie to live and I have offered it for you out of politeness, you can't know what my motives are. You can't know why I'm offering it to you. All you know is that I have made you an offer, and accepting an offer without second guessing the motives, there's nothing wrong with that. And if a game store realizes it's in trouble,
maybe stop offering cookies?
Yeah, that's it.
All right. So, okay, let's do the other thing. What should such a shop provide in the days of the web?
I don't know.
I have a suggestion. I honestly have a real suggestion here.
Oh, wow. Okay.
This is not me being flippant or taking a position against which you can argue or anything like that. I have an actual, real suggestion.
Well, that's no fun for me.
I know, it's terrible. I would like to see a kiosk created at which a person could go to their local game store, wherever this happens to be. I'm thinking game store because it seems the most important, or not important, but appropriate place for it. To which a person can go to have their rightfully purchased PDFs from RPG Now or DM's Guild or whatever printed into an actual book.
Like at least bound together in a binder.
Yes,
or something.
Bound together and printed and assembled in a reasonably nice way.
Have you ever heard of Staples?
I have.
Because their copy print center does exactly that.
No, I understand that.
No, I'm sorry. Now I'm being flippant.
I understand that. It's just that I think that is it's too late now. Okay. It's way too late now because most people have their solution in place.
Right.
But that is something I thought years ago would have been a good idea for a game store. Just for a small fee, like you used to go down and get 10-cent copies at the corner store or whatever.
Right.
For a small fee, just be able to print out your PDF in reasonable quality and bound form. It doesn't have to be super fancy. It just has to be reasonable quality.
Yeah. That's a good one. I got nothing. You have your dice tested.
Yeah, dice testing. Little glasses of salt water everywhere, huh?
Nah, just get them up on the lifts, have them weighted and balanced. Rotate your D20s every 30,000 rolls.
That's right. See, the problem with what should such a shop provide in the days of the web is they shouldn't. They should provide things that you cannot get on the web.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And the problem is what that looks like is an empty room with a lot of tables in it.
Yeah. And you have to find a way to make money at that.
Yep.
And unfortunately, one of the issues is that other game stores don't charge for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But if you're like my place, where you're the only game store for miles around,
mm-hmm.
then you go right ahead and charge for that.
Right.
Which, strangely, they don't.
Yeah, well, that's... honestly, I would like to see game stores figure out that they should be charging a cover charge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, have it...
It doesn't have to be huge either.
Yeah. No, it wouldn't take much.
$3, $4, $5, something like that.
Yeah. Just a couple of bucks. Or have like a 2-snack minimum.
Yeah, there you go.
You know?
You cannot come in here unless you're going to have 2 snacks.
Right. Which is no problem for most gamers.
Yeah.
You know,
get them to stop it too.
Yeah.
That's your trick. Yeah, I don't find and again, this is maybe just my personal experience, but I do not find a compelling reason to have a physical game store. Not around here. And it might just be that it's that lack of competition that makes mine seem so awful.
Right, because it's the only game in town, it doesn't have to try as hard.
Right.
See, there is one thing that I will miss if game stores go out of business. And it is the same thing that I miss about the fact that most bookstores now have ceased to exist.
The ability to thumb through something to see if you want it?
Yeah. I miss browsing. Mm-hmm. I miss discovering things that I didn't know existed.
Right.
I miss leafing through things. I like going into the board game store, into the board game section of the store, and seeing a board game that I have never seen before and be like, right. I wonder what that is. That looks fun. I will buy that one.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. That's why I really miss card catalogs.
Mm-hmm.
Because the neat thing about card catalogs was, and you used to get these in libraries, children. They were big pieces of furniture with numerous small drawers on them that held a practically infinite amount of 3x5 cards with information about books printed on them and arranged in an order known as the Dewey Decimal System. And if I have to stop and explain libraries to you children, I'm probably going to shoot 5 or 6 of you. But
library is the place you go to rent DVDs for free.
Yes, exactly. But in the card catalog, you just open the drawer, you'd find the book you were looking for. How do you find book? Well, because the way they arranged, they made it easy to find books.
As long as your elementary school teacher taught you the Dewey Decimal System, which they did.
Mm-hmm.
We all knew the Dewey Decimal System once upon a time.
That's right. We knew it backwards and forwards. Mm-hmm. Well, mostly forwards.
Right.
But the thing of it was, once you found the book you wanted or the book you needed, you could then page back and forth through that particular drawer and look at all the cards around it. Mm-hmm. Now, I know I'm explaining this to people of an age who remember card catalogs, but it's my fervent hope that we also have the occasional young listener as well whose life will be edified by this particular esoteric piece of knowledge.
Well, the other thing with the library was that because the shelves were also arranged in the Dewey Decimal System, was that you could go over to the shelf where your book was located and then look at the shelf and find other books.
Yep. It was amazing. And you try that on a computer today and they'll laugh at you. I feel like we have covered this now sufficiently. And we should probably indicate by some method. People were really concerned in that last episode we did about the point at which it ended.
Okay.
And if you can't tell, I've been carving in the background, just whittling here in the background.
That's that noise.
That is that noise. It's not that I'm not paying attention to the conversation, which clearly I am.
Right.
It's that I'm also doing this to help me focus a bit. The abruptness with which our previous episode came to a conclusion surprised a few people. I don't know why, because I don't think I've ever maintained at any point in these shows that there was anything other than a time limit at which we were going to stop for a given show, more or less, and that time limit would be sometimes a surprise, and sometimes that time limit would be just, gradually come upon as we come to a conclusion on a show, and then I would eventually say something like, "We're out of time."